Hockey is an essential part of being Canadian. I have so many memories growing up just around hockey. You know, playing shinny in the street, dragging the net back and forth, screaming, "Car!" You know, and the net was in tatters by the end of the season, and every shot would just sail through the back of the goal. You'd be chasing it with your buds right into the snowbanks. We all have some of those memories being Canadian. And we all know the legends. You know, there's Gordie Howe, Guy Lafleur, Gretzky, Messier, Clark, and Crosby. But before we get legends, we need storytellers to put it all down. Today's guest is the kind of passionate hockey fan who's telling the stories of guys that might become future hockey legends. He hosts the PatsCast podcast. And I'm excited here to talk about a little bit of hockey, a little bit about podcasting, and of course, drink some beer. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
How's it going?
Great. It's a little bit of a cold day, but we're here, and yeah, thanks for having us on, and we want to spread the news of the Regina Pats a little bit out there.
Was it minus 32 this morning, I think?
Minus 32. I was up early to go to the dentist, so.
And then I made you walk all the way from the brewery to the office?
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. We're going to warm up now.
So today we're drinking what's called the Bow Smash by Pile O Bones Brewing. What makes this beer a little bit special, a little bit unique, is it comes from the Bow Project malting project, which comes out of the Rosthern area in Saskatchewan. It's 100% Saskatchewan barley.
Excellent.
I haven't had it yet, so this is my first sip. What do you think?
I like it. Like I said earlier, there's not too many beers I don't like. The one I don't love yet are sours, but like you said, maybe it's something I could get into. But this is excellent.
I find it to be a little piney, a little resinous. Has some sweetness on the front end and kind of finishes with like sucking on a pine cone.
Is that a good thing or bad thing?
I think it depends on what you want.
Okay.
More of a classic, old school, maybe.
Okay. See, I like bitter things. Not bitter people, bitter beers, but I find myself drawn to bitter foods and drinks, so those usually resonate well with me. I don't know the terminology you're using.
That's okay. I'm just going to give it a little swirl here and so we can get more off the nose. It's pretty subtle on the aroma. It's not bad. It's not unpleasant. I'm not picking up any flaws. I think it's... What do you think? Before I tell you my opinion, would you share it with your friends?
I would share with my friends. Some of them not as adventurous. I feel sometimes a bit of a hipster when I say I really like IPAs and stuff, but honestly, those are just my favorite beers and flavors. And where did they come from? Like, it seemed like when I was growing up, they weren't as around as much. And then all of a sudden there's an IPA everywhere. And I don't know, there's like this hidden secret or this hidden type of beer that when I first tasted this, where has this been all my life? And I love it. I love IPAs and bitter beers and those flavors, the citrus flavors. I always thought, before I even knew what they were, that there was literally citrus in them or something like that. And to read them a little bit more, read about them and figure out that it's not. And the people that don't like them go into the story, and I don't know, maybe you can tell me if it's true or not, that they added the extra hops to make it last longer for the trips. And then they go and say, oh, it shouldn't be that way, but it is, and I like it.
Sure. Well, the legend goes, or it might be a little apocryphal, and I know there's going to be people out there pushing up their glasses saying, well, actually, but here's the Cliff Notes version. So the British East India Company would ship beer down to India, and they didn't want the soldiers drinking the local spirits, the local gut rot, because it would make them sick. And if you have soldiers who are sick, they're not doing their jobs, so you send your own product down. And it also helps support local industry, local brewers. So to make the beer survive that long trip, they needed preservatives, and hops are a natural preservative.
Okay.
To make it last, sloshing around in the barrels and the ships all the way down the coast,
Yeah. More
and more hops. Those soldiers got a taste for that. They came back to England. They said, I want my IPAs. I want my big, bold, hoppy beers. And that's kind of its roots.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States, IPAs have been huge for more than 20 years.
Okay.
You look at one of the largest segments of the craft beer industry, it's IPA. Saskatchewan is a little bit of an outlier. We're a little bit behind the curve In terms of IPA, we're seeing a lot more light lagers, lower alcohol beverages in terms of beer, but IPAs are catching on here now, and we're seeing a profusion of styles and offerings. When you refer to the citrus, that you could get like pineapple or passion fruit, you could get pine. That all comes from the different varietals of hops, and that's determined by the growing season, the strain, the soil. Just like grapes can affect the soil, can affect the flavor, so too with hops. So New Zealand hops are very distinct from, say, Yakima Valley, BC hops.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And you've got your noble German hops. You got like Halltauer is very traditional hop, and it's used in certain spices, has like a crisp note that you'd see in a Pilsner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they've been around for a while, we're just getting introduced to them locally more so.
It's finally catching on.
Yeah.
I call it the craft beer journey.
Okay.
People often, they dip their toes in. Maybe they're thinking about getting into a darker beer or a more flavorful beer, and eventually they get to IPAs.
Yeah.
I had a customer, a friend of mine, who said, 2 years ago I was all about Cat's Got the Cream Ale. It was like nice and sweet and like carrot cakey and cinnamon. He kind of liked that stuff. He's like, now I'm all about IPAs.
Yeah.
So I just threw my arm around his shoulder. I'm like, welcome to the club.
Yeah. Yeah. No, excellent. I love them and keep trying to find new ones. I haven't found one that I don't really like yet. So
we've got a couple really special ones coming out, brand new this summer. The Hazy Sesh and the Hazy IPA. We're iterating on the recipes right now in the tap room. You can get a sneak taste, but we're going to be launching them out in cans and in big batch format.
Awesome.
It's going to be deadly.
No, it's I'm excited for you guys and seeing local brands and breweries excel. I'm just happy for you guys. Actually, I recognized your name and said, where do I know Matt Barton from? I actually went to high school with you, class of 01, Campbell. So
your face is familiar, but did we have classes together?
We may have. I don't remember where, but I definitely recognized your name, and it took me a while to place it, but I recognized it. So to see local people that I know doing well and having success, that's awesome. I'm happy for you guys.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
So tell me about the Pat's podcast. I listened to a couple episodes.
Yeah.
What are you guys all about?
So my buddy here, Chris, we that run in 15-16 was probably one of the more exciting sports teams and events that I've ever been a part of. It was one of the best teams we've ever had. Season record 52 wins. Just an excellent team to watch. And so then the next year, we both got season tickets leading up to the Memorial Cup year. We went through that season, didn't start the podcast until the end of the 16-17 season. And just, I said to him one night, do you want to start a podcast? And he's like, yeah. And then we went from there. Fortunately, we didn't start at the beginning of the season. We caught it at the end of the season. But, it's just a couple of guys sitting in the basement talking about Pats. And we want to build their brand a little bit. There's pretty good support. The success did help with local media. You do see a little bit more on TV in the Leader Post and whatnot, but we just recognized there was a bit of a gap in the podcast segment. No one else was doing it, so we thought, well, why don't we? And podcasting is such a neat medium to get into. There's low entry for cost. You just get a couple of mics and a mixer, and there we were off. And it's been an interesting journey. It's something we both have this is not our background. I'm a nurse. He fixes cars. He's a mechanic. So it was something we definitely had to learn. Something I didn't really take into account. I had all the equipment. We were set and ready to go. First episode comes, and then we're just sitting there kind of stumbling over each other. I think we re-recorded it a few times. There's lots of editing that went into it because it is a really unique skill set, and it's something we're still working on. We're learning, but we're getting better, I think, every episode. One of the things that I really like about talk radio and things like that is when it can start to feel like a conversation between two people, and you're including the listener into that, and they start to feel like they're part of the conversation. So I find that's when we really start to excel, is when it's just, it's feeling more conversational, and it's not me reading stats off a paper or something like that. That's where I found we really struggled, is when I tried to read stuff, and we've tried to get away from that. So it's been a journey. It's been a lot of fun.
What are the stories you're telling?
The stories we're telling right now, it's mostly we do a weekly, so we're recapping the games that have gone on, looking forward to the next games. But I find even if we have, like last episode, we had two games to talk about. We thought, oh, this will be a quick one. We'll talk about 2 games, a couple of games coming up. We started rambling on for 40 minutes, and it's just like, okay, we better we got to wrap this up, because we've been friends for years and years, so we can just sit, talk, and shoot the shit and have fun and drink a few beers, and then we really start get going and talking about things. But and we have common interests. So the Pats leads to other WHL teams, leads to CHL, so the whole Canadian Hockey League. We talk about jerseys, and the topics can just keep going. And yeah.
So do you bring on special guests, or is it just you two guys drinking beer and chewing the fat?
It's mostly us. We've had a few good guests on. One of our favorites to bring on is Kevin. He is a long-time season ticket holder. I think 30-some years he's been a season ticket holder. So he knows the history of the Pats a lot better than us. Like I said, I've lived in Regina all my life, but really started getting into Pats a few years ago. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm a long-time diehard fan, but certainly have now gotten into it, recognized the value of the WHL and how much fun it can be.
What do you consider to be the value of the WHL?
Well, literal value of your dollars. I mean, we pay just over $300 for season tickets, and you get 64 games out of that, plus preseason, and so you're looking at just over $10 a game. I mean, how much can you do for $10, right? In the middle of the winter, when it's cold and there's just not that much to do, and you have a Pats ticket, great, you go out and you can. It makes the winter just a little bit more bearable, like today, right? Minus 30 something, and when you have the season tickets, it gets you out. Because if it's like this and you're just kind of deciding what to do, you're probably not going to go out. So when you have the ticket, that's great. It gets you out, and so the value that way, but also just compared to the NHL and I mean, I used to be a big NFL fan, and I just started to pull back. It's just too big, too powerful and anonymous, and just not accessible. Whereas you can go see these guys. You can interact. They have autograph alleys afterwards, and you can go talk to them and meet them. Heck, they're delivering pizzas on next week. So it's just the accessibility and that it's there. It's in front of you. The NHL, even for us, is you have to drive to Calgary or Winnipeg, spend a couple $100 on tickets, a hotel, food. You're looking at it could end up being $1,000 trip to see one game, and it might be a dud. So just the accessibility and something to do, and it's fun. It's good entertainment too. It's a family atmosphere now. I don't know if you remember going. I remember going with my dad, and it must be the 90s, and it was just not really a family atmosphere. There's the fights in the game, fights in the stands. Like it was pretty lowbrow kind of entertainment. But the new ownerships come in. They've really made it a family atmosphere. They have the Sunday afternoon games, and there's just kids and families everywhere, and it's a lot of fun. So. And the games change in that sense, that it's not as violent as it used to be. There's the odd fight here and there, but it's just, the game's different. It's a much more family atmosphere. And
it's no longer you went to the fights and a hockey game broke out. It's more about skills.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I remember the line brawls between Regina and Moose Jaw. And it was what it was at the time, but the game in itself has evolved past that, and it's a lot more fun, in my opinion. I don't hate when there's fights, but I don't advocate for them either. But the game's changing.
Do you have a favorite hockey memory, something that inspired you to get involved?
I would say there's two. There's the games I used to go with my dad. Not to sound corny, but they were really, I still remember those, and we would go to quite a few, and it was a lot of fun just going there, and they had mildly successful teams at that time, a few playoff runs. But really, the thing that inspired us to do this was that season with the 52 wins and that playoff run to the WHL finals. It was just so intense and so exciting. And tickets then were a bit more expensive. As they get into playoffs, they go up a little bit, but the dollars per excitement was just such great value, and that just sold it for me. I was just like, I'm a fan now of WHL and Pats in particular. Yeah.
Who are some guys you're watching this year? What can people get excited about this year?
So if you're a casual fan, you might be looking at the team saying, oof, it's not looking so good. But this is what we expected. The really unique thing about junior hockey in the WHL is that it's a cyclical kind of event. You build your team, and then they go, right? Because they age out. It's an expected thing where you're going to have 19, 20-year-olds, and they can't be on your team next year. You might be able to keep a couple, but either they're drafted. If they're good players, they're drafted, and they're either going to the NHL or the AHL. So you have just this natural turnover, and you kind of ride the crescendo and go back down. So we're on the dip right now. But if you look at our team, we've got stable coaching, we've got good management, and I think we've got the right pieces coming. And they worked hard this year. They moved some of their better players, got some draft picks in return, and we've got some kids right now. They're young. So you got to think we have 16, 17-year-olds on the ice. We have a couple 20-year-olds, a few 19s playing against 19 and 20-year-olds, like some of those top teams like the PAs and Everett's and Portland's are 19, 20-year-olds. And, I mean, as a man, you know the difference between your 16, 17 body to a 19, 20-year-old. It's almost boys against men. But we are seeing some great efforts from this team, and I think that comes down to good coaching, and they have a good vision. Some of the players in particular, Cole Dubinsky, Riley Crane, Duncan Pierce, Riker Evans. I mean, we can just keep going. Our goaltender, Max Paddock, is still only 18, so we could have him for another year or so. They're building a really good core here, and I would say next year we'll see an improvement. But that 2 to 3 years from now, we could be back at the Crown, because we do have the management with the vision that we keep saying in Paddock we trust, because he's moved from coach to GM, but he's done a lot for this team, and it's stable, and I think we're going to have some success here in the future. So,
when I was a reporter, I used to work in Moose Jaw, and the Warriors were a thing.
Yeah.
You know, you covered the Warriors, you got a lot of feedback. People were telling you what they thought immediately when your article hit the paper, you know?
Yeah.
I feel that's how people are in Regina about the Riders.
Yeah.
Every time I did a Rough Rider story, I got immediate feedback. It was high energy, it was passion. People were very much paying attention to the Riders. Do you find that's building up for the Pats now?
I think we saw a peak a few years ago and last year with the Memorial Cup. It's fallen off a little bit this year. That being said, we've both been really impressed with the attendance at the games. There's still a good number of people. We're one of the higher average attendances in the WHL, which is awesome to see. I gotta give it to the city for that, because after last year and the success we've had, and then this year I don't want to say they're an unsuccessful team, because they're still a very good team and they're young. So they're good for what they are, but they're not seeing the results, right? We're not getting the wins. We're not doing what we were a few years ago. But we've seen good attendance. Past that, I'm not sure. Like, so you have your core, say 5,000 people that go to the games.
The crystal ball gets a little cloudy.
Yeah, so the energy outside of that, I don't know if that's where it is, and that's where we're trying to help. Like, and it's tough to reach people because we're the Pats podcast. So how do you get your name out there? And so I'm happy to have. I think we cross probably a few demographics, but we're trying to get out there a little more. But frankly, this is a hobby for us. We're not going to invest a ton into advertising and whatnot. So we're coming up with some ideas. And I guess it's for us. It's what is successful. It's just a hobby. We're doing it for fun. Even if we doubled or quadrupled our listener base, it's probably not going to change too much. We just want to get the word out and have the interaction on Twitter. That's our main medium for interaction.
And so what's next for you guys? What's coming up in the next year and a half?
The next year, I think that's what we're trying to decide. We'd like to grow a bit, but we're just going to keep on keeping on. We're going to be there. We're going to reach out to some other people in the WHL that cover, and hopefully get some interactions with them. I think we can maybe develop getting some grassroots information out there. So there's some really good resources on the players coming up. And I think maybe that's where we could get some more attention is looking at the things that the normal media may not cover. Because when you read Vanstone's articles, they almost mimic what we're saying. So that's encouraging that we see the same thing, someone like him.
Rob Vanstone at the Leader Post,
right.
A seasoned sports reporter who kind of has his finger on the pulse of
exactly.
all
so
sports.
When I read his article, it's very similar to what we're saying. So that's encouraging to us that we see the same things and he sees the same. So now to differentiate ourselves a little bit is maybe trying to get that information on the guys coming up. So otherwise we'll just keep doing our weekly podcast and keep having fun with it, hopefully grow a little bit and get our name out there a little more.
Well, thank you for coming on the show today, man.
Yeah. No, thank you. This has been a lot of fun.
Rebels, I'm going to include links to the WHL Pats podcast on the show notes. You just go in there, you click on them, you can follow it all the way through and see what Matt and Chris are talking about every single week. If you want to find the latest news about Rebellion Brewing, be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Untapped. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.